The Suicide Squad, Anno 1800 and the Bart Bonte Collection. This is Staying In.
I feel like I'm running behind. I've got to be honest with you. I've had such a busy last few weeks. It's been lovely, obviously, because obviously, Chris, you popped down with Sam.
I did, yeah.
And that was lovely. We had a lovely time.
It was very nice. A whistle-stop tour.
Whistle-stop tour.
It was part of your UK tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, our arena tour.
So, obviously, you went to go and see Dan. You went to come and see me. You went to go and see family.
Yeah.
Which was the best?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me this. Well, I mean, I think, and this is, I know a cop-out, obviously, because I'm not obviously going to pick one person over the other, because...
Just say family.
Like anyone who does an arena tour, you do not want to burn certain bridges.
No,
you don't want to burn any bridges.
Cardiff, this was the best! And then Macclesfield, you rock!
Well, I had a lovely time. I mean, it was lovely. It's just lovely to stay at Dan's new house I've not seen, and to hang out with his kids and playing football. And we had lots of sand ice creams. I remember that in the garden outside. That was really lovely. I also got to go on the VR. I got to be Batman at Dan's, Pete. And then I got to do VR on my knees, which apparently is the only way to do VR, on your knees.
No, I think it's important to say that because you did play some VR and you played SUPERHOT VR.
Super hot.
There is no requirement to be on your knees. In fact, it works better if you're not on your knees.
Right.
However, both yourself and Sam both felt the need to just kind of crumple into a heap on the floor and try and just flail about.
Right.
Which was hilarious to watch.
Yeah, and I'm glad chose the video that he did of me doing that, because I felt that was the one that painted me in the most positive light that is on our Instagram page.
You looked rather panicked, I have to say. The video is on our Instagram feed, and you looked somewhat kind of panicked, as if you were in real life being attacked by people.
I was very furtive, definitely. And I think it was two reasons. One, because at that particular point where Sam snapped that video of me, I was in cover. But it was also, Dan, it was the cover, but B, I realised when I was playing Batman VR just beforehand that I came very, very close with my grapple gun of wiping out all the ornaments on your mantelpiece. And at one point, I remember I hit your lampshade above.
You did.
Yeah.
It was fine.
But you were so quiet, Dan. I think you'd be a very good driving instructor. Just simply because nothing flapped him, Pete. If Sam and I, had been doing what we were doing in my living room, I would be conscious of houseplants, books, mugs, everything just going everywhere. Yeah. Dan has got, it's a mantelpiece of treasured memories. There's pictures on the wall, and we're just going hell for leather, me and Sam. Just to survive. It's that fight or flight response, and I think that's what VR does to you, really.
But, I mean, I've often seen Dan as a bit of a druid in terms of, sageliness and wisdom.
He's got the look about him as well now.
Also the look to go with it now, yeah.
This is why I've done it, really. This is why I've done this.
It's finally
that's why I've grown
out.
my hair the way I have.
But, I think you've got to have an element of calm when you've got a VR set in your house. And, potentially a kid running around that you might hoof.
Well, I don't tend to play kind of hoofing games when he's running around. There's an element of sensibleness that goes into that. I'm just very aware of my surroundings when I do put on the headset, which blocks out all of my perception.
Have you ever damaged anything or hurt yourself at all doing VR?
No. Because I am very aware. There's in my living room, there's a square space that kind of does fit it quite nicely.
Oh yeah, compared to me and Sam, Pete, Dan was just this incredibly pensive, relaxed chess player of a super hot player.
One thing I really enjoyed was because obviously we played the original SUPERHOT probably a decade ago now.
I've got it on my Switch Lite. It's brilliant.
Yeah, on the well, we played it on the PC. It was like a free game.
Yeah, we played that Game Jam game version.
Yeah, so that was just on PC, and so whenever you move the mouse, the game move forward. I think this VR version is the best way to play it. It's the most fun to play it. But I kept on saying to you guys, don't forget, like, if you move, everything's going to speed up. And so I would just watch like Sam and Chris just flailing their arms around, and obviously everything's then really fast. And so when I do it, I'm very still. And so I move very slowly because I'm watching where the bullet's coming from. And so it just appears that I'm just this kind of wise fellow moving so subtly. But it's kind of, no, I just remember that the game is much easier if you don't run around and flail about.
Yeah. Sam turned to me and he said, "How?" I said, "He's beginning to believe." So yeah, we did that. That was lovely. And then we went down to Shez Willington in Bristol. It was really lovely to go down. I love Bristol to pieces. A beautiful city. And again, a whistle stop tour. It was just one night there, but we had, like in Warwick, had some fantastic food. We went to an incredible vegan junk food place.
Yeah.
Vegan fast food place, which was amazing, called Seitan's Corner, Dan.
Satan's Corner.
Wow, that just makes me want to go.
Good.
Sounds both very dark and very twee simultaneously.
Yeah, and it was really good.
And we didn't do the challenge, Dan, in case you're wondering, that Pete was trying to rope us into, which will... What does the challenge entail, Peter, again?
Well, basically, there's a spicy food eating contest that if you pay like 25 quid or something, then you get a spicy burger and some spicy fries, which the source of them uses this like 1.5 million Scoville chili sauce. Yeah, the whole thing is meant to be just like super, super hot, basically, ironically. It's labelled as 5 flame symbols out of 5. We bought, I say we, I mean me. I bought some something's called Satan's Gravy, or the Devil's Gravy, or something like that, and that was 2 flames out of 5 on the thing. And let me tell you, I am really glad I didn't do that 5 flame challenge, because those 2 flame ones were like, oh my goodness me, this is very, very warm, and I'm not very, I've sort of dodged a bullet here.
Pete, would you say that you are someone who likes spicy food?
I like spicy food, but I like it when it's flavorful. I'm not like
I like it when it's mild.
Yeah, right. But I like it when it's like I don't like heat for heat's sake. I like heat because of flavor's sake. I like spice in burritos, for example. Right, so I like that's more where I sort of prefer my spice, but luckily the person at the front desk when we walked in saw us coming, and she said, I said, so how spicy is this spicy one? And she was like she was very, very friendly, and then her sort of face just slightly dropped and just went, it's very, very hot. And I was like, is it hot? She was like, it's very hot. And I said, okay, how hot is it? And she said, it's so, she said, well, have you got anything to do tonight or tomorrow morning? And I said, yeah, I've got to go to work. And she was like, I don't recommend it then. And I was like, oh, okay. She was like, it's probably not worth the stomach cramps. And I was like,
What is, though?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, the prize, which is getting your photo on the wall and a T-shirt.
Because you'll have to change.
I mean, that's not a massively amazing prize, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, right. To become known as one of the few in Bristol that's eaten that meal and finished it.
And it was quite a rogues gallery. There was quite a lot of pictures up there, surprisingly.
Yeah.
And not all of the same person.
Yeah. Yeah. Spicy Jim, who just comes back every single weekend. Obviously, we did loads of lovely things while you were down. Nice food.
Tick.
Nice walk-in.
Tick.
Yeah, the walking was nice, weather favourable.
Yeah.
Lots of places explored. I mean, I have to say, if this were a competition, and life is a competition, so let's make it one, Dan's walking was slightly more favourable because he took us to somewhere where Chris and I hadn't been before. Whereas Pete, even though telling us that we'd never been to this place before and he was taking us somewhere new and exciting, when we arrived there, both me and Chris turned to each other and went, yeah, we've been here before, Pete.
No, this is not entirely accurate. I took you to... admittedly, I took you to the same place again because we decided to visit the wonderful Camera Obscura.
But you say we as if we all had some sort of voting or choice.
Yeah, as host, you determine what happens, Pete.
Yeah, and it was a great time. We went into the Camera Obscura, we saw an old camera, and then basically we also went into the caves and we saw rocks.
You nearly fell over.
So there was lots of all of that sort of stuff, but admittedly, where that was places that we'd been before. So it was by the rock slide, the natural ancient rock slide that's in Bristol. It's quite famous to locals. And so had a little slide down there. That was quite nice.
Yeah.
Got some footage of the chaos. And now, to get there, I'd forgotten the way to get there.
Yeah.
So I did take us to a new place that you've not been before.
You did.
That was by accident.
Yes.
And do you know how I knew that, Dan? Was that Pete, whenever I asked Pete, where do we go next, he would always begin every sentence with, I reckon. If my sat-nav did that every time.
Probably over here.
It's probably this way.
I reckon.
But, it got the steps in. Nice bit of cardiac exercise to, keep...
Cardiac exercise.
Yeah, is that right?
Cardiac arrest, I think it was.
Yeah,
wasn't
well,
it?
it sounds a lot more aggressive than I think you're intending. But yeah.
Cardio would have worked, perhaps.
Oh, right, all right. Cardio exercise. So I did all that. That was good. And we also played some wonderful board games.
We did.
We were at the White Lion, which is again a quite famous pub in Bristol.
Mm-hmm. Overlooking the suspension bridge. Well, I got there late because I had to go to the loo, and you and Chris had nicked both the seats that looked towards the suspension bridge, so I just had a nice view at the bar.
Yeah, you poos, you lose. So
we don't do T-shirts, do we? That should be.
Oh, that's amazing.
We had a lovely pint there, and we played a game called Kraken Salad.
Just cockroach salad.
Cockroach salad.
Yeah,
that was good. That was very good. And we played. Oh goodness, we played Anno 1800.
We did.
Which was a beast of a game.
It is, well, to some extent it is, but actually I find it a really nice, relaxing game, Anno.
Oh yeah, for sure. But there's a million chits in that thing,
yes.
And there's a lot to think about. It's quite I found it quite a hefty game and admittedly the theme's quite hefty as well, which is basically trade in the in the 1800s between powers, but there's a lot. It takes up a very large bit of real estate on the table. I don't think we could have played that on my old table. I've got a table now that extends out, and we needed to extend.
But this is, you might recognise the name if you are a video game fan. Top fact that Pete told me is that the thing with the Anno games is the numbers always add up to 9.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, so it's a series by Ubisoft that's been around for a while. It's all about trade, and all of the numbers, Anno, whatever. It's always basically 4 numbers: 1602, 1800, that kind of thing. All the numbers always add up to. If you add them all up individually, they will always add up to 9.
Do you know why that is?
I don't know actually. Why is it 9? I guess maybe they did it once or twice, and then they were like, maybe this is okay. Maybe we could just keep doing this. It'll be a nice little in joke.
Because at first I thought it was a reference to 18xx games, which are a thing in board games. But is that not? Is that just this is just a naming convention? And
yeah, as far as I know, yeah, it's So 1602, 1404, 2070, they all add up to 9.
Fair enough. So, so you might have heard of the video game before, which is very interesting because when we did the unboxing for this on our Instagram page, it's quite funny that like on the front of the box it says Anno 1800, and then it's got the definitive article, and then board game, just in case anyone thinks they've gone back to the 1990s where they used to sell PC games in those massive boxes.
8 discs.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a game. It's I kind of want to say it's a civilization game, but it's not one like for example, Civilization,
yeah,
or Through the Ages, or even something like Imperium, which we've spoken about on this podcast before. It's not about domination and essentially like beating everyone around you into submission. It's all very insular and sort of individual. And the things that you are doing are also not very combative or indeed very aggressive either. There is a sort of a little smattering of that might be going on in some instances with the mechanics, but this is kind of a civilization game which is more concerned with not really expansion and not really domination, but instead just making the people that happen to live in your little island happy. And I think that sort of is whenever I'm sort of introducing this game to new people, that's kind of what I start with in terms of like the teach, because I think like that sets the tone for the game. Like there is nothing really like aggressive, there's nothing really like combative or really sort of in your face about this game. You're just trying to make your population happy by giving them what they want, and that thing might be sausages and t-shirts, it might be cigars and
kitchen roll.
So it makes for a really pleasant, and I want to say sedentary, and it sounds like a negative, but I feel like, you know, it is a gentle experience.
I mean, it requires a lot of thought, right? Like it's difficult, and it is a Euro game ultimately. Like it's not a game that is particularly interested in taking points away from others. You know, it does require quite a lot of introspection of thinking, okay, because it's got that mechanic, hasn't it, whereby you've essentially got workers, and once you've placed the workers from the top of the board into a slot at the rest of the board that you've got, and each person's got a separate board themselves, you kind of have to use all of those pieces, and the kind of most efficient way through that is to use all of those pieces, and then at the end call them all back to their starting positions by essentially skipping your go, by having a party or whatever it is that it's called. So you do, because of that, because there is that essentially missing a go to kind of reset what you're doing, there is naturally a desire to not have to do that too often. And because of that, you do have to think quite a bit in advance. Okay, if I do that this time around, then next time I'll do this, and then next time I'll do this, and then if that all works out, then on the fourth one, I can do the final thing, that'll all have added up to this, and then I can reset the thing, and I've done the most maximum stuff I can do. And I think that means it makes for a slightly quieter, slightly more introspective sort of a game.
Because essentially what you're doing is building what is known as a tech tree. So Daniel, you'll kind of recognise what that is from, you know, any sort of video games, a bit like, I think even God of War and Horizon may have had them. Definitely some of the Assassin's Creeds had them. And Civilizations in general, the idea that you have your abilities, your progress through the game is defined by what you've kind of unlocked before it, and you can choose certain paths to define what your character is. So if you want to be like a stealthy, poison-based assassin, you've got to start building on this branch of the tree. Or if you want to be like a ranged assassin, you've got to be building on this part of the tree. And Anno works in a similar way, where you look at your population and you go, right, these guys need a lot of sausage.
It's true. There were a lot of guys that needed a lot of sausage.
Like, I need to be producing a lot of soap. So how do I make a soap factory? Right, I need pigs and coal. Brilliant. I can do that. And then, like, once you've done that, you go, right, I've got a soap factory, which means that if I build another one of these factories, I can then make this good, which will allow me to make this person happy. But then I need to make this person happy, and they need X, Y, and Z. And to do that, I need to build. So you're always, as Pete was saying, you're always kind of almost working backwards, looking at those things, looking at those tasks you need to fulfill, and deciding, basically, to use the literal tree analogy, deciding what branch you need to sort of either shoot off or reach to the end of in order to meet those requirements, or with really ever decreasing resources.
So how is the kind of the requirements of your people and stuff like that displayed and communicated back to you?
So for each population cube that you have in front of you, they come with a card. A face will be depicted on that card. So, you know, if you're playing with like little card stands like we were, it's a bit like you're playing Guess Who. They're all of that like kind of similar ilk of like slightly exaggerated sort of animated faces. I believe it's all of the assets are lifted straight from the game. So if you've played the game before, you will have seen these faces before.
It certainly seems like a lot of them.
Yeah. And then above that face will be, this person wants T-shirts and watches. And when you fulfill that contract by basically being able to take your workers and place them in those factories that build those things, then that will they may give you like this one-time buff that you can use, but they will all give you victory points at the end of the game. And I know that one thing that we love to do was kind of look at the person on there and then make a quick snap judgment based upon what it is that they really wanted right away. The thing that would make them happiest most in the world was like a sewing machine and a steam engine, and then making a quick snap judgment of what kind of this character would be like. And the art is evocative enough just to really like, all this lady, all this guy wants is a lot of sausage all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got to say, like, I think that this is probably one of the most successful video game adaptations, board game adaptations of a video game. I think this is a really, really smart use of the IP. Like, having played a couple of the previous Anno video games, this board game gets that across really well. It isn't the same thing. Like, you aren't worried about trading routes particularly in terms of exactly what the route is that each of your ships is going to take. And I know that sounds a little bit dry, but trust me, the video game is pretty good for this sort of thing. But you do have to worry about, how big is your fleet? How quickly can you churn out boats? Do you have enough workers to be able to fulfill each requirement that you have? As you build out your town, are you increasing the social standing from, farmer to kind of more industrial worker to citizen to, whatever it is? Mm-hmm. And I was genuinely impressed, actually, at how basically just how well they managed to capture the spirit of the video game. Because my understanding is, and I do apologise, but I've forgotten the name of the chap that's made this thing. But
Martin Wallace.
Martin Wallace. And my understanding is that Martin Wallace is a bit of a sort of brain box when it comes to making board games, right? He's pretty good at this stuff.
Yeah.
What had Martin done before this?
Martin had done Brass Lancashire, Brass Birmingham, the ones that come to mind straight away.
Tinner's Trail, London.
Oh yeah, London.
So again, like, their MO seems to be fairly chunky, fairly hefty, real world-ish tabletop games, and this feels like that.
Yeah, and I think again, Sam's right at describing this game. It's quite tricky because yes, it's chunky. There's lots of pieces, but in the same sense, although not to the same epic sense, A Feast for Odin. If you look at it, it's a very daunting prospect. You've got this huge marketplace, tons of different tiles there. If you accept the fact that, like A Feast for Odin, you're not going to be accessing all of those tiles on that board, it's fine. And what I really quite like about Anno, which I've not seen, I don't think, in any other Civ kind of game, is that, yes, there's that little bit of competition. Oh, I was going to buy that. I mean, there's always at least two of something there. There's slightly more of some in certain areas. But what I love is actually, I go, okay, actually, I'm not going to buy that because I know Sam's going to buy that. And that's great because then I can just trade with Sam and then I can then buy what he was planning to get next. And this interesting bit is that actually everyone's working along at times along the same tech tree route, but we're actually complementing each other. We're just each getting that next stage in the process, really, which I find really, really interesting. So there is that dash of competition there, so you don't feel like we could all go off into a separate room and play this game simultaneously.
No, right.
But at the same time, there is that really lovely Zen-like state. And this is why, Dan, Sam and I were talking about this. We think you would be brilliant at this, Dan.
Yeah.
Because, genuinely, I think this, you would really find that satisfying to play, because it's the kind of engine building that I really quite like. That I see smatterings of it a little bit in Scythe as well, that moving of cubes around back and forth. And once you've got that routine down, it's a really, really, really pleasant experience.
Well, I think with these kind of games, for me, they do always tend to feel really dry and complex, and you need to sit down and concentrate and focus, and this is what we're going to do for the next 6 hours, and we're all going to have a lovely time, aren't we? Yes, we are, absolutely.
Yeah.
Whereas listening to you guys talk about this one, it does sound like you have the cards with the people on it, adding an element of kind of fun and enjoyment to it, a bit lightning. I can imagine sitting there and having like my group of people in front of me and like developing almost relationships with these communities of people in front of me. And then you talk about kind of not cooperative, but kind of half cooperative of seeing how you can utilize what other people are doing for your own benefits, in the knowledge that people are doing the same to you. Yeah. And I think you're probably right in saying that I do enjoy kind of, by the sounds of it, kind of, I would enjoy that aspect of very clearly seeing that progression and ticking off that level of progression as the game continues. So it's not just a case of I'm trying to just grind my way through this, and at the end of it, I ended up in third place, and like, oh, that wasn't great. Yeah. If I can see that progression going through, it's going to excite me to play more and more, try and push myself. So at the end, when I do finish third, I'm now happy about it, as opposed to earlier when I was kind of just a bit kind of disappointed.
Yeah, it's become one of my favourites of really like of recent times, just because of how like relaxing it is as a game, and as Chris was saying, like you cannot refuse to trade with someone else. Like if you say you're trading and you've got the tokens to do it, you get to use their factories. And I think that's just like wonderful. It doesn't mean anyone's hoarding anything to themselves. It doesn't mean anyone's like is able to run away with it, because we're all able to like visit each other's islands and take a little bit of what we need, and that makes everyone really gregarious and really helpful and generous. Like, you know, Chris will put his hand up and goes, right, who's got a bit of glass? And both me and Pete will be like, oh, we've both got glass factories, come to our island, like, and that's really, really nice. And like we played one game, Dan, where Chris, for whatever reason, just had all the cigarettes and all the champagne factories. So his island just became the one of cigarettes and champagne. And it was lovely that whenever we needed it, we were just like always popping over to Chris, and he was there on this
Club
like party
1830.
island. Yeah. So yeah, it's absolutely lovely. And I think despite the sort of daunting box, despite the daunting thing on the table, it's all there for a reason. And I think it's, if you're looking for something which is relaxing but feels, you know, thematic and like exceptionally rewarding, this is a good option.
Can I take you all back in time?
Please. Well, it depends how far. Like the last 20 minutes, because that was pretty rough.
Well, let me take you back about 15, maybe 20 years.
Okay.
I'm not very good with time or directions. But
2001.
2001, yeah, sure, that'll work. I reckon about 2001.
No, I was in high school.
Yeah, sure, okay, yeah. So yeah, I was in secondary school. Yeah, this is about the right amount of time. Do you remember you'd have the computer room, and you'd go and at lunch times maybe, or in school breaks or something like that, or maybe when you came home, you rushed home to turn on your dial-up modem. And you'd go and play flash games. Did you ever play that? Did you ever do that? Did you ever play flash games?
I remember playing things like was it Congregate?
Yeah, Congregate. They're still around. Yeah. Congregate, or going to Ebaum's World.
Ebaum's World was my haunt.
Yeah.
I remember that being a massive thing in like university, early university time. That being a big thing.
Yeah, that around that period of time. So like Weeble and Bob and Salad Fingers and Homestar Runner and
Magical Trevor.
Oh, the peanut butter jelly time guy. There were lots of animations, but there were also lots of games. Do you remember that little chopper challenge where you'd have to like have a little helicopter go through? It was like Flappy Bird before Flappy Bird.
I do remember that.
And then there was like Stick Death, where you'd have a little adventure with stick men, and they'd all just like kill each other.
I remember there was ones that were like almost like not even games, but they were like, like Frog in a Blender.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. Like that was really
toys.
Yeah, basically really weird thinking about it now that like, have you played Frog in a Blender? Oh my, you press one, it just like whizzes around a little bit and then...
And unbelievably, it's free video games. Wow. So one of the kind of pioneers at the time, and I did not know this until I picked up their collection. One of the pioneers at the time was a chap called Bart Bonte, and we've talked about Bart Bonte on this podcast before multiple times. So this is the person that made blue, red, pink, yellow, all the different color game apps, basically, that are little. Essentially, they're different levels, and use your phone to fill the screen the color that the app is called. So pink, you'll need to make sure that everything on that screen is the same shade of pink, and you'll do that in a lot of different ways. But I didn't know this, but because I don't think I played any of Bart Bonte's games before I actually played the mobile games. But it turns out they were a Flash developer for like years and years and years and years before all of this sort of stuff, and they were making some pretty well-regarded Flash games from what I can find. And Flash died a year ago?
Yeah, thereabouts.
And so they basically, all of those Flash games now just don't exist. And there's been a mini wave of people bringing those games back and sort of porting them to proper PC games and releasing them as like little collections. So the Bart Bonte Collection is a game that I picked up on Steam recently, and it's 28 Flash games put together in a single launcher with achievements. So 3-star, different sort of star ratings that you can get for progressing through certain amounts of the levels, or different areas, or doing certain things, and then an achievement when you get those 3 stars, which is usually completing that game. And I had no idea that the kind of games that Mr. Bonte's been making are very, very different to the puzzle games that are currently on mobile. So I've been basically blitzing through these, and there's 28 of them, and it's bananas to kind of like go back and play Flash games, but because I remember thinking, these are just kind of throwaway. These are kind of silly, Flash games, whatever. I won't care that they're gone. But actually going back and playing this collection, I realized that actually, no, there was a lot of value and a lot of like good memories built into those Flash games. And there's a lot of amazing gameplay ideas going on in this collection. Obviously, I won't list all the actual games that are in here, because you can just see that on the Steam page, and I'll pop a little link in the show notes where you can go and click and see all this sort of stuff. But there were the range of and breadth of ideas in this package is really, really cool to actually play. So there's a game called Factory Balls, which is is one of the, I think, the more famous ones that they put out. And I think probably it did well potentially for discovery reasons. Like, I think it's a when you're young and silly and you can say the phrase factory balls, it's probably quite fun for you, I would imagine. But he made 4 of those, and the idea is basically that it's a factory in which you are trying to create specific types of balls, and the way that you do that is you're given a blank sphere to begin with, and then you have to spray it a specific color. So you do that, and then that's correct, and you've done that one. Great, level 2. Cool. Well, you need to put a stripe in the middle this time round. But the way that you put a stripe in is you put the ball into this machine that puts a metal barrier over an area of the ball, so that when you spray the whole thing, it misses that section. So actually what you need to do is you need to spray the whole thing the color that you want the stripe. Then you take that ball and you put it into the metal strip section so that it covers that section up. Then you spray the whole thing the outer color, and then you take the metal strip off, and then you've got a colored ball with 2 different colors on it with a stripe of that color in the middle, and then you've moved on to the next level. And it just gets more and more and more complex from there. And it's brilliant. I don't want to denigrate it by calling it a time waster, but that is what it is. It is a superb collection of time wasters, and I think there was something quite I don't want to say like therapeutic about it, but it was really nice to just have on like a podcast and listen to something and play these little flash games that are very straightforward in what you need to do, but they are real thinkers in that you do need to sit there and like really kind of work it out as to what this puzzle really is. There's also a load of escape room games which he made, which I thought was really, really cool. So like finding a key, one of the games is called Me and the Key, and it's literally an escape, an old school, you're stuck in a room and you need to solve puzzles to find a key to unlock a door to go to the next thing. Like, think The Room. Like, basically The Room was like the fancy pants version of all of those Flash games, essentially, when it came out many years ago.
And Pete, are you playing them like one at a time? Are you playing them individually and think, okay, I've had my little fix now? Or with the collection, are you treating it almost like tapas? Like, are these games, I imagine these are quite short run times, durations to these games, so is there a tendency to play a bunch of them? Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And because they're all kept within this one launcher, I can go, okay, I fancy something a little bit puzzly. Cool, I'm going to go and do 4 or 5 levels of sugar, where I have to draw lines to have little pixel bits of sugar enter a container, because I've only got a certain amount of sugar that I can pour down this thing, and I have to get X amount of quantity of this sugar into this pot by drawing this little line.
I think that's what I like the sound of this most, is that one of the great things about sites like Congregate was that you click on a game and then there'd always be, another suggestion, or, why don't you try playing this? So the fact that like they're in their own little launcher helps simulate that experience to some degree. Is that right?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think the other thing that this gets across that I think we forget about video games sometimes is that most video games, when you sit down at a console or a PC or something like that and you sit down and play it, there's a tutorial. There's tutorializing. There's loads of the developers spend a huge amount of time popping up little windows that say, hey, make sure to press A to do this. And and when you go back and play these Flash games, it's really surprising how straightforward, how quickly they get you into the game, right? Like, so when you're playing the escape room games, or you're playing Duck, for example, it's the actual interactions that you have are very straightforward. You are clicking on the screen, and that's it. You know, it's all played with a mouse. Or there's a few very sort of basic puzzle platformers, and it's really straightforward. Okay, this is what it does to move. I've completed level 1. Brilliant. Level 2. I need to think about it a little bit more. There's never tutorializing. There's never like treating you like a dummy. It's just, here you go. Here's a fun little selection of puzzles. Go and work it out.
And I like the idea of like Pete's version of like someone who goes down to their wine cellar to have a look what wines they're going to enjoy this evening. And he looks, oh no, that's a 1960 Chateau. No, I'll have one of these. No. Whereas for Pete, it's kind of like, let's see, you know, what delectable little game will I play this evening?
That's exactly it. Yeah. I'll have a little nibble of that. Oh, I'll have a little nibble of that. Nim, 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 nim. And it you know, it's like that. It's like that scene. It's like that breakfast bar scene in the hotel, the continental breakfast. You know,
Yeah, tiny plum.
I can try everything. I can try lots of different ideas. It's sort of like video game preservation, but also video game archaeology at the same time. Like we're kind of going back and looking at these quote unquote ancient games from like, you know, a decade and a half, 2 decades ago. But
annals of history.
Yeah, exactly right. But like. But it's great that they're being maintained, and it's great that people can go back and have that moment. I think if you picked up Hypnospace Outlaw based on my recommendation, this is the next one to move on to.
Sam and I went to the cinema again
We did.
a few weeks ago, and
Guess how many people were in there with us?
Okay, things are starting to open up, aren't they? You know,
Things are starting to open up. Can I give you the context around?
Yeah, go on.
Around it. So we went to an inner city cinema.
Okay.
So not like one on the outskirts, somewhere weird, like, you know, I don't want to say, but you know. And we went to go and see the Suicide Squad.
A new movie, a Hollywood blockbuster.
A Hollywood blockbuster, a brand new movie. Things are starting to open up. People are going crazy to do things like they used to do things. It's rated 15, I think. So, you know, a broad selection of the audience is able to go.
Pete, I feel like we've been taken down a path here.
Yeah, what?
There's not the true path.
What time did you go and see it?
Okay. 10:40 a.m.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So how much legroom did you have?
pretty much all of it.
Wow.
In my mind, you've kind of, as you've explained all of them, like my kind of prediction is like, okay, higher, and then at the last second, 10:40, plummets down to the bottom.
Yeah.
There was no one.
Who's
there.
watching movies at 10:40?
So you went to see The Suicide
The
Squad.
Suicide Squad. That's exactly.
What did you think of Suicide Squad?
I thought it was one of the worst films I've ever seen.
Oh dear.
Not wanting to mince my words too much.
Please don't.
I'm in agreement with you.
What briefly, because we're going to talk about The Suicide
Yes, we
Squad.
are.
What was so bad about Suicide Squad?
Okay, 2 words, Peter Whittington. Studio and intervention. That was a primary one. I mean, obviously there's, you know, certain directorial choices, certain bits of its mise-en-scène. It was that particular period where all DC films wanted to be was very monochromatic looking, very dark looking, and they were trying to, at that point, world build. They were trying to catch up with Marvel. And what's really refreshing about this new film from James Gunn is that Superman is mentioned once. We don't get any mentions of anyone else. We don't see anyone else outside of the Suicide Squad. And that's refreshing. Now that DC has recently started to say, actually, we just need to do standalone stuff. I think this world building stuff needs to kind of peter out a little bit. For me, it's become a little bit more interesting. It is literally like he's just been given kind of full control of the IP. And this is a very different Suicide Squad to the previous one, although it does strangely maintain some of the same actors. So it's a very strange one. It is a kind of a reboot, but it's what some people would call, I suppose, a soft reboot, which means you don't have to have seen the AF film. Right. So for those who don't know what Suicide Squad is, as a means to shorten their prison sentences. You've got a group of comic book villains that generally people haven't really often heard of prior to the film. They're kind of like D-list comic book villains that are grouped together. They volunteer for this thing called Task Force X. And the deadly nature of these missions they go on has given that team the nickname of the Suicide Squad. And in this particular instance, you have a Suicide Squad that's made up of Peacemaker, King Shark, Polka Dot Man, Ratcatcher 2, and they're led by Bloodsport to destroy a laboratory in South America that has come under the control of an anti-American regime. And that's the premise, really. So to some degree, like the Avengers, but even more so, every time you get a different Suicide Squad, because it's basically handpicking different inmates. For those who make it back alive, they may make it into the next one, and you get a little bit of time taken off your sentence. You have a chip embedded at the base of your skull, which means if you don't play ball at any point, somebody in the control room can press a button and blow your head off. So that's what allows them to keep playing ball, and so they're kept on a long leash, essentially. I think two of the best castings at a comic book film are within the DC universe, and that is Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn and Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. She is phenomenal. And this, for me, I was talking to Sam about this afterwards, because obviously we'd seen it together and we didn't want there to be an awkward silence when we were walking back to the car. This felt to me like a video game movie. What I mean by that is it's segmented into lots of different acts with these really creative title cards. But it felt like I'd just watched somebody put together all the cutscenes from a game. And so it felt like, I felt like each bit felt like a level, like getting to the island. Okay, meeting up with the rebels. I'm not going to go for the entire plot completely, but you get the picture. It's getting from this point to this point to this point to this point. Oh, we've got to do this. Oh, change of plan. We've got to go here. And it felt very much like a video game. It's a very colourful, dynamic, and Gunn calls it a war film. I mean, I don't know, really. I maybe I haven't watched enough war films. It felt more like a kind of an interesting kind of quest narrative of anti-heroes, really. And I think its major fault, and I know we don't often like to talk about faults, is that actually, to some degree, it picks the gag over the emotional kind of beats. And there are a few instances in this where you start to kind of get very close to the characters, particularly towards the tail end of it, and Gunn will deliberately undercut that, just for the sake of a joke.
It's getting tiresome, that, like, it really is that, like, that sort of pacing of a joke, and how it's like the teaser trailer for the new Spider-Man film came out, and there's a bit in it where someone's telling Stephen Strange not to do something, and he says, "No, I won't." Wink. And it's just like all the films now just tend to have that, like, that same sort of like sense of humor, and it's especially egregious in the trailers. Obviously, it's slightly a bit more diluted when you watch the films, but there are certain scenes in Marvel films, and there's certain scenes in the Marvel TV shows, and definitely in Suicide Squad, where something really, really serious is happening, and it's so distracting because I'm just sitting there waiting for someone to say something funny, and someone to go, or a character to turn up and be really inappropriate, or just get in the way and diffuse the tension. And that happens a dime a dozen in the Suicide Squad. Aside from that, and no film other than Birds of Prey really knows what to do with Harley Quinn.
Yeah, she is very much the DLC to the video game movie aspect of it.
Yeah, it just feels like she's such perfect casting, Margot Robbie, and she's such an interesting character that it was kind of like, well, we're making the Suicide Squad first character, Harley Quinn. What we're going to do with her, no idea, but she's got to be in this film. And she definitely isn't as over-sexualized and as objectified as she was in Suicide Squad. She does, as Chris said, she does feel like, all right, what we've got to do with Harley now. and you could cut her out in the movie and the movie would still exist and be absolutely fine. But she's just, Margot Robbie, such a fantastic like presence on the screen. And I guess like James Gunn's shtick also becomes a bit tiresome. Like my main problem with the first Suicide Squad was like DC going, right, we've paid all this money for all these stars, Will Smith and Margot Robbie and Joel Kinnaman, and then they were just like, but we can't kill him. What do you mean? We can't kill him off. We paid all this more. What do you mean the Suicide Squad? No, David, don't kill them. Just we'll think of something. And it was like completely like there was no tension there because you just knew that they weren't going to die because it's Will freaking Smith. Whereas James Gunn, he was announcing all these stars like, Peter Capaldi and Sylvester Stallone and, all these like A-listers, and it was just like, there's going to be death, basically. These people are going to be killed. And that happens to such an extent that it almost creates exactly the same feeling that it does in the first Suicide Squad, where there is no tension about who is going to die. And every single death is so gory and sort of overbearing and over the top. Even that becomes a little bit like, all right, the movie feels like it's running out of steam. All that to one side. It is a great film. Yeah. Like it is, and for it has to live under the shadow of Suicide Squad, but it manages to do everything it can to pull itself away from that and stand on its own 2 feet as like a really good comic book movie.
One of the things that kind of with the previous Suicide Squad film that bothered me was I never got a sense really that the characters were bad people. The film did a lot of work to humanize them. It gave Deadshot, the Will Smith character, he gave him a daughter he cared about. I'm not saying that's not in the comic books, but it pushed the fact that he was a father kind of thing, wanting to sympathize with him. Whereas these are also supposed to be really dangerous and like villains. I never with kind of the first film got a sense of that. Maybe once or twice, maybe with kind of Killer Croc or something like that, you get a little bit of that because all he ever does is really kills people. So in this film, do you have that again? Do we try and sympathize with them, or are they actually bad guys that are just being put into this situation?
There's a degree of complexity there. I mean, what I quite like about this particular ensemble is there's a real range. There are people in this squad who are very bad people. I mean, you see it in the trailer, John Cena's Peacemaker. Cena. I saw it as well. Who said, I cherish peace with all my heart. I don't care how many men, women and children I have to kill to get it. And yeah, he is just psychopathic.
He's vile.
But then you go from that range to someone like Ratcatcher 2, who really is the heart of this film, who Daniela Melchior, who's just phenomenal. I just could not take my eyes off her performance, just phenomenal, who is in that more misunderstood kind of category, really. So you get the full range here, and it's really interesting then that you've kind of got that they're kind of weighing each other up against each other, saying, oh gosh, I thought you were the crazy one. And then Polka Dot Man turns and says, yes, I am, compared to Peacemaker.
So one of my favorite things about when we were traveling is that while traveling on the M5, Chris and I went past a landmark that I've never seen before, and we've travelled this road a couple of times, and I've never come across what this landmark is. And it turns out, like, I think the reason why it's so weird is that it doesn't have any sort of marcation or demarcation on its side or any of its like faces. Like, it is just a green and white building with a big chimney sticking out the back of it. There's no like mainland energy or any sort of like.
Yeah, I see.
It almost looks like a transformer that's halfway between transforming in from an incinerator, which is what it is, into a robot. So this is the Javelin Park incinerator along the M5 as you go towards Bristol, and basically it's just like a place where they burn rubbish. because we're running out of places to put it.
Just because I feel like you're doing Bristol dirty here. There are many fine things to do in Bristol. That is not the landmark that I would associate with Bristol.
It's what I now think of when I think of Bristol.
Well, there are quite a few people that would disagree with you because, and this is kind of the discovery of our little trip, was that whenever you like search for anywhere on Google Maps or enter in like a business or a restaurant that you may be going to, like it will throw up some reviews that people may have left of those certain locations. This is also true of incinerators alongside the M5. Apparently,
Of course it is.
So the rest of the trip was then peppered with me reading out these wonderful reviews of the Javelin incinerator along the M5, and I'd love to share some of them with you now.
Okay,
Please do.
So this is from Rory O.
Okay.
5 stars
Out of 5, I should say.
out of 5. Okay, here we go. Bold, striking, beautiful, but above all else, functional. Truly a modern take on incineration. The way the eye is drawn to the building, past the detritus of cars on the rain-sodden M5, is breathtaking. Don't listen to some of the other reviewers. They're probably part of the incineration watchers front. Not a purist like us in the watchers front of incineration. DM me for more info.
I think he was the architect of that building.
It's that last sentence. Yeah, it's that last sentence,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Tom, 5 stars. I'm extremely happy to have seen this incinerator. Although I've not been inside, I can only marvel at the stunning architecture. I already plan to come back next year.
But he's not going in, so his plan next year for his summer holiday is to drive down the M5 down a small patch past an incinerator.
My favourite one, loads and loads of 5 stars, the cultural centre of Gloucestershire life, a true British classic that should be celebrated for years to come.
What is going on? Why have people got too much... There are things to do.
Finally, something to put Bristol on the map.
I think my favourite one is the 4 star from Dan J, who says, fantastic modern decor and a good solution for the trillions of nappies that threaten to overwhelm our landfills. Drink selection was a bit lacking, so giving 4 stars.
Drink selection. They have firstly, they have a drink selection.
What drinks do they sell at the Javelin incinerator, Dan?
Flaming Sambucas.
Good.
Yeah, that is
Very
good, actually. Yeah.
I get it. I'm glad I got it there first.
Yeah, you did that well.
So as we were then, laughing and giggling at this, just having fun, Chris noticed that we were coming up to the Michael Wood service station. So then immediately, this is like my new thing now. Have a look. Let's see some of the reviews for this Michael
Oh,
Wood
for God's sake.
service station. Ray kicks butts. He's a local guide. 59 reviews, 1 star. When the sign says KFC, and all you've been thinking about all day is thick chicken gravy and dunking a fillet burger in it while ramming in fries by the handful. And you rock up and they're shut. Dirty, lying, disappointing bar stewards. Change the bloody sign.
Wasn't there one we read, Sam, that just said, bring a credit card?
Yeah, Mark Anthony Burge. Local guide, 126 reviews, 4 stars. Nice and clean, but bring your credit card.
What? I don't... There's so much more people can do with their lives. There's so much more.
It was the specific, bring a credit card.
Bring a credit card.
Not even a debit card.
No.
Like, you're going to have to pay this off in installments.
Yeah.
This is...
You're going to spend so much money here.
Oh, yeah. My new favourite thing. So that was it. That was another episode of the Staying In podcast. I was there, Sam Turner. There was Peter Willington, Daniel Frost, and my fateful companion in the sidecar, Christopher Darby. On the subject of reviews, why not leave us a review? I mean, we don't have a landmark yet in the UK, but I'm sure there are tons of places where you can leave us a review for just listening to this podcast. We really, really appreciate it. If you can't leave us a review, then please just tell someone about this podcast. Just share that you're enjoying something lovely with them, and hopefully they may listen to it too, and then pass on that good word. And that helps us grow and helps us bring more loveliness to a lot more people around the world. It's a great thing. As usual, if you've missed anything covered on the show, then there are details in the show notes, but always we have our curated pages on Board Game Geek and also on Steam. So any video games or board games we've spoken about in this episode, you can catch up and find them out there. Obviously, Chris is very hard at work curating Spotify playlists for anything that we've covered that contains music, gets shoved into one of those playlists that we've curated there. Details will be on our Twitter feed somewhere, or just get in touch with us either personally on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, or you can just mail stayinginpod@gmail.com, or just search for Staying in Pod on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of those places. In fact, talking of Instagram, that's a great place to check up on what we've been doing. We put up a few pictures of mine and Chris's road trip up on there, a few videos as well. There's also unboxings for games like Anno 1800, so you can get a bit more an idea about what we were talking about in the podcast over on Instagram too. But for now, though, that's it from us. We'll be back in a couple of weeks or so. Well, no, we definitely will be, because we like to keep on schedule. Do carry on taking care of yourself and others around you. Remember, do whatever you need to do that makes you feel safe and comfortable, while also making others around you feel safe and comfortable. That's a really important detail. If you want to get in touch with us, please do ask us a question or offer us some maybe something that you've been enjoying that we should check out. We love that. Then do get in touch with us. We'd really like to hear from you. But for now, until next time, bye-bye.